the greatest sports debate show on the
For the first time since 2016, we have got a Game 7 in the NBA Finals.
championship rings, starring
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. They won the championship ring.
I am loving this feud. Don't you dare shit on this. Don't you dare.
I'm gonna shit on the stipulation of it.
Oh my God, the stipulation is fantastic.
now.
Well, it is 2026. We have not been here in a long time, but welcome back to Championship Rings. I'm Brandon Woods, host of Brandon's World. That is Ungar to the Max, host of the Sports Room Talk Show, Josh Ungar. Josh, I feel like it's been a millennium since we've talked sports.
I think so. And, well, the sports world said, hey, here you go.
Yeah, we have a lot of news to get to tonight, and we were going to do a show right before Christmas break, and then yours truly came back from John Cena's last match, unfortunately, deathly ill. And if you can hear it in my voice, I'm still recovering a little bit, so give me a week or two to fully bring back my energy. But we got to start with the breaking news that was right before our show came off the air. The Ravens and John Harbaugh have parted ways.
Yeah, to be a little bit transparent here, we were going to originally start the show by talking about the Ravens-Steelers game that went down on Sunday Night Football, which probably cost John Harbaugh his job because Tyler Loop missed that game-winning field goal, which I think if Tyler Loop makes that game-winning field goal, Harbaugh still has his job. Mike Tomlin would not have his job.
You're probably right on that.
But, you know, I understand why the Ravens did this. When you've got Lamar Jackson, you've got to show something. And yes, they've been to the playoffs multiple times. Yes, they've won the AFC North multiple times with John Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson. I get it. But to only go to the Super Bowl once and obviously win that back in 2012, that's great. But you're hosting the AFC Championship in 2019. Or no, that wasn't 2019.
They hosted the AFC Championship in 2023 against Kansas City.
That's what it was, 2023. Thank you. Against Kansas City. That's what I was that's what I was referring to.
2019 was the year they had the number one seed and they lost to the Vrabel Derrick Henry Tennessee Titans.
That's okay. That's where I was getting confused. Thank you for the clarification on that. But in both cases, they fell flat on their face. You know, in 2019, they couldn't stop Derrick Henry. And then in 2023, they seemingly forgot to run the ball and asked Lamar Jackson to pass it way too much. And, you know, he couldn't overcome Mahomes. He couldn't overcome Josh Allen. And when you underachieve as badly as they did this season, it makes sense. I mean, for God's sakes, they showed the betting odds the other day. Entering the season, they were the favorites to win the Super Bowl this season. I had them facing the Green Bay Packers in Super Bowl 60 this season. You know, you looked at the Ravens roster. You got Lamar at quarterback, Derrick Henry at running back, Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely at tight ends. I like Zay Flowers at wide receiver. You know, they probably have the best roster in the NFL. And you underachieve this badly, it's not surprising that this type of change happened.
Can I ask you a question, though? Did they underachieve, or was part of this because Lamar Jackson was hurt the whole year?
So that's a fair question, and I totally think it's valid to ask that. I think in this case, the answer is yes to both. I really do.
Technically, Lamar did not play for, what was it, 6 games? 5 games?
Yes, I believe you are correct there. So yes, it is fair to say they underachieved, but it is also fair to say yes, they had to deal, with Lamar's injury. So I think in this case, you can answer yes to both of those questions.
Well, and I just think it was time. This reminds me a lot of the end of the Andy Reid era in Philadelphia, where it was like, he's been there for 14 years, but it's just time. It's time they need a new voice. And it ended up working out for both sides. Obviously, Philadelphia got multiple Super Bowls out of it. So did the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think the Ravens' job now, all of a sudden, I know the roster isn't great, especially on defense, but you got to find out about Lamar Jackson. If Lamar Jackson is truly healthy and he did not decline this season, all of a sudden, I know you got Pittsburgh to deal with, you got Cincinnati still to deal with, you got the Browns, and we'll talk about them in a minute. But if I got Lamar Jackson, to me, that is one of the most desirable jobs in the NFL this year.
Honestly, and we'll get to like the NFL Black Monday stuff here in a few minutes, but if I had to rank desirable jobs, I would say number one is Baltimore. If Lamar Jackson truly is fully healthy, I would say number two would probably be the New York Giants because you got a young quarterback in Jackson Dart. You got a young wide receiver in Malik Neighbors who looks like he could be a star. And you've got Cam Scadaboo who, yes, he'll be recovering from an injury, but you can establish a run game there. And then at number three, I would say the Atlanta Falcons. I like Atlanta. They came on strong at the end of this season. So I was a little bit surprised in that regard that they fired Raheem Morris, but nonetheless.
So can I make an argument? Because I think Harbaugh, listen, if he wants to take a year off, he's got every right to do so, and he might do that. But if he does not, obviously, I think the Giants would be the best fit for him, but I would make the argument for Atlanta. I think Atlanta would be almost the perfect job for him because one, he could pick his general manager. Two, he could decide, do I want Kirk Cousins? Do I want Michael Penix? What am I going to do with the quarterback situation? And three, you're in a division with Baker Mayfield, who you know from your time in Cleveland. Tyler Shuck, who looks okay, pretty good. Maybe he's a franchise quarterback. Maybe he's not. And Bryce Young and the Panthers, who we'll talk about in the wild card round, who that's an up-and-coming team, but they're not this perennial powerhouse in the NFC. I think that's a place where if you want to get away from Jim, who, maybe you don't want to play in the same conference as your brother and have to face him potentially every year, I think that is a spot where Atlanta, he could go in and he could win right away and he could potentially have a lot of control there, unlike the Giants who still have Joe Shane.
Yeah, I agree with you. But it depends though, because Harbaugh is in his 60s. Our team's gonna want an older coach like that, or are they gonna want a younger coach who's more with the times, if you will?
And I don't think Harbaugh is like Pete Carroll, who is completely, clearly over his skis in Las Vegas. Like Harbaugh did find a way to win. They went 8-9. You could make an argument if Tyler Luke makes that kick, despite all their injuries, they are winning the AFC North this year if Luke just makes that kick. So I think it was time, honestly, for both sides, but I think both sides could, again, win out of this situation.
Yeah, it for me, though, it depends on who Baltimore hires. And, the questions of, is Lamar Jackson still going to be in Baltimore? Because, yes, he has 2 years left on his contract, but there are all these reports now coming out recently. You know what I'm referring to, right?
Yes.
So, so in that regard, where there's smoke, there's fire.
But was that a John Harbaugh thing or was that a Ravens decision? That's what we'll find out.
Right. And I don't know the answer to that question, but with all this Lamar Jackson news, I can't just sweep it under the rug and say it's nothing. So is it a guarantee that you're going to have Lamar next season? I don't know. Most likely he will remain a Raven. I can't see them trading Lamar. But, you just never know. The NFL, it's crazy. Even when we get to the offseason stuff, once the Super Bowl is over, the NFL is still going to dominate the headlines, whether it's like crazy trades like we had a couple years ago, whether it's head coaching news or stuff with the draft. But speaking of head coaching news, do you think that now that Harbaugh is on the market, some of these teams who have come out and said, yeah, we're keeping our head coach are now reconsidering? A team like maybe Indianapolis, maybe a team like Cincinnati, teams like that.
So I don't think he'd go to Cincinnati. I don't think he'd go to anywhere in the division. Indy, I don't know if he'd want to go there because he doesn't know their situation with the quarterback. I think if there is a team out there where you have a quarterback, like I think Buffalo now, if they lose to Jacksonville, I think they would move on McDermott and try to get Harbaugh. I think that's the number one job now we have to be on the lookout for.
But my point, though, some of these teams who have come out and said, nope, we're not making a coaching move of any kind, now that they see Harbaugh is on the market.
Like with the Dolphins with Mike McDaniel. Sure they would. Absolutely.
Exactly. Thank you for reminding me about the Dolphins. But that's why I specifically mentioned Indy and Cincinnati.
Well, there is another head coach that got fired very early Monday morning. Josh, it's your team. The Cleveland Browns have officially fired Kevin Stefanski, but for some odd and may I please say dumb reason, Andrew Berry still has a job.
The wrong person got fired. Kevin Stefanski should still be our head coach. Andrew Berry is the one who should be gone.
All right, this thing.
Okay, but anyway, I shall continue. Yeah, I loved Kevin Stefanski as our head coach. Even when we had 3 wins last season and throughout the season on this show, yes, I said, my defense for him is eroding. But not one time did I ever say, yes, we should fire him. I never uttered those words. I never said that over on my own YouTube channel, Ungar to the Max. I never said those words here. And, I hate this. He was a 2-time coach of the year, brought us to the playoffs twice. In 2023, nobody expected us to make the playoffs. Deshaun Watson, starts the season. He gets injured. We have to turn to the likes of P.J. Walker and Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and then we go to get Joe Flacco off of his couch, and we end up making the playoffs. I know I didn't expect that. You probably didn't expect that.
Not at all.
So isn't that a testament to Kevin Stefanski? And I get it. We've had 13 different starting quarterbacks in his 6 years. Guys like Jeff Driscoll, Nick Mullins, Joe Flacco, Baker Mayfield, Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, just to name some of them. I know I'm missing some, but cut me some slack here. I get it. But, Deshaun Watson, there we go. But for me, Stefanski's hands were really tied because here's my thing is go look at Kyle Shanahan for this season. Nick Bosa's injured. Fred Warner's injured. Brock Purdy misses a bunch of games this season. Yet on Saturday night, they were facing the Seattle Seahawks to decide who would win the NFC West and who would have the number 1 seed, meaning the road to Super Bowl 60 would go through your building. You think that's just because Kyle Shanahan is a great coach. A lot of it is because of that, but it's also because their general manager, John Lynch, built a solid roster to where they were able to stay in, the fight and not crumble. Andrew Berry didn't do the same for Kevin Stefanski. I'm not saying that Kevin Stefanski would have gotten us to the AFC Championship or would have gotten us in a position to fight for the number 1 seed, but maybe if we had a better roster to where we could sustain some of the injuries, who knows? Maybe we could have been fighting for a playoff spot. Maybe we could have been fighting for a division title. Like it's frustrating to me because Stefanski brought a level of stability to this franchise that we haven't had in years. I really liked Stefanski as our head coach. I was furious when I heard the news. My fandom for the Browns went like this. Boo! Got shut down. That's how much of a Stefanski fan I am. So I know that he's going to talk to the Giants. He's going to talk to the Falcons. He's going to talk to the Tennessee Titans. And guess what? The Browns play all 3 of them this coming season. The game against the Giants will be in New York, but the games against the Titans and Falcons, I believe, will both be here in Cleveland. Either way, even though I'm a Cleveland Browns fan, I hope if Stefanski gets hired by one of those 3 teams, I want him to stick it to the Browns and put it right in. Sorry, I'm not calling him Jimmy Haslam. He is Jerry Haslam.
Yeah.
And
so, I was torn by this news, and I started texting people. I think I accidentally had it in my draft. I didn't text you on Sunday morning.
I was waiting for a text from you, but I never got it.
On Sunday morning, I was texting people, #thank you, Kevin. The reason for it, obviously, all the reports were out. He was going to get fired. Monday morning news was just the official news. So here's where I'm at. Do I think Kevin Stefanski is a good head coach? I'll be honest with you. No, I don't. I think the fact that he gave up play calling twice was his doom. I don't think he's a great play caller. I don't think he's a great motivator for a head coach. But I also don't think he was given a fair shot. And this roster is so putrid. And Andrew Berry had such a great draft class. Well, guess what? He might have missed on the most important position in all sports, quarterback. And that's all I care about. Dylan Gabriel doesn't even belong in the CFL, let alone the NFL. And Shedeur Sanders may or may not be a starting quarterback. He did not look very good outside of the first half against Pittsburgh the last month of the season. Now, Sunday, he was playing with guys that are going to be selling cars by tomorrow. But now you have to figure out who are you going to get to pair with Shedeur Sanders. I think it should be an offensive mind. I think you have to get an offensive mind to see what you can get out of Shedeur, because now that you have the 6th pick in the draft, you are not going to trade up. You're not going to go get a quarterback. I think Kevin Stefanski, if he goes into a stable situation, I think the Giants would be the perfect situation for him. He already has his quarterback. He's got a good offensive line. He's got good weapons. He's got a good defensive line, at least. Their secondary may need a little bit of work, but the Giants are ready to win. I think if he were to go there, he would be successful. I think if he would go to Tennessee, he would not be successful because that roster is not ready to win. But the fact that Kevin Stefanski got fired and Andrew Berry is staying is the issue. I would have had no problem if both of them stayed or both of them got fired. I think the fact that one of them got fired and one of them did not is the real issue.
And also, Andrew Berry is going to help lead the search for the new head coach, and I don't like that. What has he done to prove to me that he knows what he's doing? Like,
I'll answer that. Nothing. He's done absolutely nothing.
Yeah. I agree with you.
Now,
Like,
I, who are they going to get? I mean, are they going to get an offensive mind? Are they going to get a defensive mind? Are they going to get a leader of men? I think the whole focus should be on seeing if Shedeur Sanders is your quarterback of the future. And I think the best way you do that is to go get an offensive-minded head coach who's been a successful play caller in the past. And no, I'm not talking about Mike McCarthy. I think the guy you go get is Joe Brady, the Bills' offensive coordinator, the guy I've been saying for a month.
So I think I just read that the Browns have requested to interview Todd Monken, the Ravens offensive coordinator, which I don't think that would be a good fit at all.
I think that's a waste of time. I don't understand that at all.
My pick, I know he just got fired from Atlanta, but I still really like him. I thought he did a fantastic job, especially down the stretch, even when Michael Penix injured. If Atlanta had just won that game against the Jets, they would have won the division.
Well, there's your argument. And to me, the AFC North is a lot tougher division than the NFC South. I think Raheem Morris has already gotten 2 head coaching jobs and failed at both miserably. I don't think he's getting a third.
Fair. I know, like, it didn't work out for him with the Jets, but still, look at
Robert Saleh. I would agree, but the problem with hiring a defensive guy is, do you want to take the risk that Jim Schwartz is not your defensive coordinator next year?
Well, what if that part is true? I do understand that argument. Yes. But I don't want Jim Schwartz as my head coach. Look at how he did with the Lions. Not very good.
To be fair, that was 10 years ago now?
Yeah, but still. But
I don't think Jim would be the worst head coach in the world, especially if you're using him for a stopgap year. I mean, if you don't, Jimmy said this roster was good enough to win more games, and I know you believe that too. No, it wasn't. The Kevin Stefanski got 5 wins to me out of a 3-win roster because you didn't have any skill positions on the team besides Harold Fan, who was a great draft pick by Andrew Berry. Absolutely, he replaced David Njoku. But this team has no weapons on the outside. You're not going to win like that at all, period.
I agree with you.
They won on Sunday because they got 2 defensive touchdowns. That's the only reason why they won, because the offense could not move the ball.
Yeah. And also it was a meaningless game, but whatever. Congratulations to Myles Garrett. By the way, I'm breaking the all-time sack record in a single season.
On the most wasteful, great season you could argue in the history of the NFL.
Yes, that I agree with. But no, I feel like all the points you're making are just emphasizing what I said with the 49ers. Like, they sustained injuries, and yet Shanahan was still able to get them on the doorstep of the number 1 seed. I think if Andrew Berry had given Stefanski a better roster, I'm not saying he could have done the same thing, but you would have put him in a better position. That's literally all I'm trying to say. Maybe the comparison doesn't fully make sense, but do you at least get where I'm going with that?
Yeah, and now let's rank these jobs. So obviously there are 7 job openings now. You have the Ravens, the Browns, the Titans, the Giants, the Raiders, the Cardinals, and the Falcons. We already talked about it a little bit. I think the 3 most desirable jobs are the Ravens, the Giants, and the Falcons, though I would make an argument if you can get a quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals. They were a team that I thought was going to be a playoff team this year. They started 2-0, albeit against the Saints and the Panthers, and then they fell off the rails. But this team, they got Marvin Harrison Jr. when he's healthy. Michael Wilson came on at the end of last year. Trey McBride is a very excellent tight end. They do have Walter Nolan, Josh Sweat, Will Johnson, some foundational pieces on defense. They have dudes. It is a very tough division, but I think that they have players, and if you can find the right coach and the right quarterback, I think Arizona can compete.
So it's interesting. Jonathan Gannon is one of the names being thrown around as a potential candidate for the Browns job.
That's an absolute no for me.
Fair
I know
enough.
he's from here, but no. And I've experienced Jonathan Gannon. He was the defensive coordinator for the Eagles in Super Bowl 57. And no, I do not want him back in any capacity in Philadelphia either.
Fair enough. Just to finish up what I was saying, the Browns have, for me, we haven't had a definitive number one wide receiver since Jarvis Landry. Like,
I would say since Josh Gordon.
fair enough. But I'll say since Jarvis Landry. But like Amari Cooper, he had good statistical seasons while he was here in Cleveland, but I never felt like he was a definitive number one wide receiver. Jerry Judy's, he's had very good statistical seasons, but I've never felt like, oh yeah, he's our definitive number one wide receiver. So I just wanted to finish up that point. But in terms of my thoughts on other firings, the Raiders are such a dysfunctional franchise. It's not even funny. Like, Antonio Pierce only got 1 year there, and then he's done. Pete Carroll only gets 1 year, and he's done. The Josh McDaniels experiment, you knew that wasn't going to work out, but he only lasted like a season and a half. Like,
I don't think he even lasted one season.
But this, whatever, I don't even remember the timeline with him. But nonetheless, I to a certain extent, it feels like they're more dysfunctional than the Browns.
We were saying the same thing about the Texans, and then they got D'Amico Ryans and Nick Caserio, and look at them.
Yeah, I know. That's been a slam dunk for them. But, I will make a slight argument for the Tennessee Titans. Yes, I agree with you. They have a bad roster, but it looks like Cam Ward is their franchise quarterback. If you can get some good skill position players around him, that could be a desirable job.
Yeah, I think that's a job that needs an offensive coach. I don't even think you interview any defensive candidates there.
I agree with you on.
I think you need a guy who understands offense, who can get the most out of Cam Ward and whatever receiving group you come up with.
Yeah. I'll say this statement applies for both the Tennessee Titans and the Cleveland Browns. In the 2026 NFL Draft, I'm focusing on offensive line and skill position.
Absolutely. And the Browns, by the way, may need all 5 new offensive linemen, which is very interesting. So I don't know. I do feel like somewhat this Browns defense is ready to win. If they get a wide receiver and you like Shedeur Sanders, this roster can win 8, 9, 10 games next year. But I don't trust Andrew Berry to do that. That's the issue.
And again, it goes back to what I'm saying. Andrew Berry did not give Stefanski a good enough roster to really do anything. So it was never Stefanski's fault. I will continue to hammer that point home. In my opinion, it was never Stefanski's.
Well, I don't think he's totally innocent. Again, he gave up play calling twice. And he's an offensive mind, and really their offense was never that good for the last 3 years.
I'm not trying to absolve Stefanski from blame, but I would say maybe 90% of the blame goes to Andrew Berry, and I would say 10% at best goes to Stefanski. But in terms of this question, I'd like to put the Ravens number one, but because of the uncertainty with Lamar Jackson, I can't do that. I'm actually going to say Atlanta is number one. I would put the Giants number 2. I would put Atlanta number 3.
You mean Baltimore, because you just said Atlanta number 1.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Atlanta's number 1, the Giants number 2, Baltimore number 3. Thank you. I would probably go with Arizona number 4. No, actually Tennessee number 4. There we go. Arizona 5. I would say Cleveland at 6 and Raiders at 7.
Now, if the rumors are true, I believe the Raiders already have their head coach and their offensive coordinator and their quarterback, for that matter.
It's
I
we. I
from
mean,
what I've heard, it sounds like Tom Brady, who is the minority owner. We've talked about this at length, but he is involved in the coaching search. It sounds like Brian Flores is going to be the head coach. Brian Dable is going to be the offensive coordinator, and Fernando Mendoza, that is obviously going to be their quarterback.
okay. That if those rumors turn out to be true, that would be an interesting spot because Flores, you still have that lawsuit going with against three teams. I don't think anything has been settled.
By the way, for the record, I still think in that case they're still fourth in their division easily.
Yeah. Even, yeah, I would agree. Even though Kansas City, we don't know how long Mahomes is going to be out.
And I would trade Max Crosby at this point too. By the way, I think you need to completely restart over.
Yeah, I mean, you say, "Oh, he's injured, he can't play," and he posted
just like Brock Bowers, and then they end up winning that last game against the Chiefs anyways because it didn't matter.
Yeah, but even in the game against the Giants, like Crosby showed a video of him playing basketball, and he looked perfectly healthy to me. Like, if that's not a sign you're openly tanking, I don't know what is. But so in that regard, Al Davis and Haslam are kind of similar, but because it's like you're one and done with the Raiders, that's why I would put them last and put the Browns slightly ahead. But, the top three for me, like I said, are Atlanta, Giants, and Baltimore, and those three are kind of separate from the rest of the group.
Atlanta's the interesting one because what are you going to do at quarterback?
Yeah, right. I picked the Falcons to win the NFC South this season because I thought Michael Penix could, put it together. You've got Drake London there. You've got Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts. I like what they did in terms of the draft defensively. So I thought Atlanta would be a very dangerous team this season. And on Monday Night Football, they beat both the Bills and the Rams at home. And they won 4 of their final games down the stretch. If they would have won a couple of those games early and midway through the season, they would have been the ones winning the division and hosting the Rams in the wild card round.
Well, the interesting part of it, their new president of operations sounds like it's going to be the guy working for CBS right now, Matt Ryan. And he's had a lot of defensive head coaches throughout his career, not a ton of offensive coaches. I think Atlanta is going to be the one where you could see a Chris Shula, the Rams defensive coordinator, or some of these maybe under the radar DCs. I think Atlanta is going to be a really interesting one to watch.
I agree. I think in terms of like most interesting, Atlanta is number 1 there. I would say Cleveland is number 2. So 2 separate lists.
If you had to guess right now, because I'm not going to ask you about Harbaugh, because we don't know for sure if he's going to be back, if he's going to take a year off. I think if you exclude Harbaugh, we both agree Stefanski's the best candidate. Where do you think he ends up?
I would guess the Giants.
I would actually agree with you.
But if he doesn't, I think he ends up in Atlanta.
Okay, well, we talked about the NFC South a lot, and their champion, who we both liked coming into the year, you a little bit more than me, but they beat the Rams a couple weeks ago in Carolina. But now they are 10.5-point dogs at home in the wildcard round as we start previewing the wildcard weekend.
I will tell you this. I don't think there's a bad game at all in these wildcard rounds.
No, I think there's a scenario where we get multiple 3-4 upsets. And I'm not just talking about by the spread.
I could see it, but I don't think you're going to see a blowout in any of these games. I really don't. As For some reason, my logo just popped up on the screen there.
I just turned off my camera for 1 second.
Okay. I think almost all of these games are going to be one possession down to the final drive. Like, it could be maybe you get something with the refs, or like, this team needs a game-time touchdown or a game-time field goal. I really think it could come down to that. But in terms of this game, yeah, that has to give the Panthers a boatload of confidence. The fact that they already beat the Rams. Yes, it was rainy conditions, and Matt Stafford definitely was off. But still, you have to give the Panthers credit for winning that game. It's not like they just fluked their way into it.
I agree, even though they do have a worse point differential this year than the New York Giants. They've been a very good underdog team. I think it's way too many points. I think that the Rams' biggest weakness is corner, and the Panthers' biggest strength is they have big wide receivers. Now, Bryce Young in his first playoff game, I'm worried about. I don't think he's going to play great, but I do think that Carolina could potentially give the Rams a better game than most people think.
If I'm the Panthers, I'm running the heck out of the ball.
See, if I'm the Panthers, I'm throwing the heck out of the ball because I'm going to throw to win. I'm going to force the Rams to create light boxes, and then I'm going to start banging away with Rico Dotto and Chuba Hubbard. But you have to establish that Bryce Young can beat you. Because if you don't do that, then they're just going to load the box all game.
No, your point is totally valid. But by the same token, if you're able to run the ball early with Rico and Chuba Hubbard, that will bring the defense, more down, and that opens up the middle of the field for guys like Ted McMillan and some of their tight ends, and that could open up the passing game for Bryce Young.
I am a little worried about the fact the Rams Stafford did not play well in that game. What was it, 4 or 5 weeks ago? And they still almost won. Like, I think the Rams are going to come in looking for revenge.
It's interesting that the Rams lost both of their road games against the NFC South.
Well, it's also interesting that the Rams in 1 week time went from the 1 seed to there's no way they can win the 1 seed, and they were almost the 6 seed, and they did not play well against Arizona.
No, they didn't. But at the same time, I do think now that Puka Nacua is back, that definitely takes a lot of the pressure off of Devontae Adams.
It's the opposite. Devontae Adams has been the one hurt.
Yeah, you're right. But you're 100% right. But we'll see. Is Devontae expected to be back for this game?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay. So that should help with the Rams passing game. But I just wonder about the Rams running game. It's been very on and off.
And they're going up against Derek Brown and that big Carolina front.
Yeah.
I think the Panthers can give the Rams a game, but this would be the one game that I think if the Panthers do win, I would be surprised.
No, I understand that. It would, but for me, it would not surprise me if Carolina won. But like I said, I think this game's going to come down to a field goal or, a dropped pass on a third down, something like that.
Well, this next game that's going to take place on Amazon Prime Saturday night, the line, I don't know. The Bears are dogs by 1.5 when the Packers have not won a game in a month. Yeah, you could make an argument the Packers should have beat the Bears in Chicago if it wasn't for that crazy onside kick the Bears got, followed by that awesome throw in overtime by Caleb to DJ Moore. I looked at this game, Josh, and I'm telling you, I have no idea who's going to win this game.
I'm a
I
little
would
bit disappointed that
go ahead.
Burkhardt and Brady aren't calling this game for round 3 because I thought the first 2 games when they were on the call, they did a fantastic job. In my opinion, those were Brady's best 2 games of the season.
For
So
sure. Yeah, no, I agree. Um, Listen, I'm a little bit worried about how Caleb's going to play in his first playoff game. Being at home, I think there's a lot of pressure in that spot. Jordan Love has had a month off to rest. There could be a little bit of rust there. These two teams match up very evenly against each other. I just don't know, man. The fact I can't get over the fact that the Bears are 1.5 point dogs. That to me means that Vegas thinks the Packers are the better team. And based off the way these two teams have played, Green Bay has arguably outplayed Chicago for 8 of the 9 quarters that they have played.
what scares me, and they talked about this a lot on the Sunday night broadcast for the Bears 49ers game, the Bears don't generate a lot of pressure on the quarterback.
Yep.
They rely heavily on turnovers. So, and I think that's why the 49ers had a lot of success, because they really ran the ball effectively with Christian McCaffrey, with Brock Purdy. So I think if the Packers can establish the run game early, kind of like what I was just saying with the Panthers in that regard, but if the Packers can establish that run game early with Josh Jacobs and to a lesser extent Jordan Love, I think that's where they would have success because you're not allowing the Bears to really force turnovers. You're keeping Caleb Williams and that Bears offense on the sidelines. You're not putting your defense, which is now, I would say, suspect, in a position to where they have to make plays. You're controlling the game. You're keeping it low scoring. I think that's the formula Green Bay has to rely on.
Yeah, I think for the Bears, they have to get off to a hot start. They have to get the lead early. They have to get the crowd into it. They have to get Caleb Williams' confidence is going. Because if Green Bay gets the ball and marches down to that first possession and scores, it's going to be uh-oh.
Oh, I agree with you. I think it's critical that Chicago gets off to a hot start.
If I'm the Bears, I think you make the argument if you win the toss and teams rarely do this. If I'm the Bears, I think I take the ball.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because I was thinking the exact same thing in this particular case.
I think that this is a rare game where you play a division rival 3 times. And by the way, 3 times in the last, 6-7 weeks. So these two teams are going to be very familiar with each other. I think it's going to come down to a bounce. It's going to come down to who can execute better. And I do think the experience factor in that regard does go to Green Bay.
I will say the NFL is much better when the Bears-Packers rivalry actually means something.
And the one good thing is it looks like it's going to mean something for a long time.
Yes. I think Ben Johnson has absolutely been the perfect hire for Chicago. He's unlocked something with Caleb. And, we were talking about whether Matt LaFleur was going to be on the hot seat.
Which reportedly he is, by the way, which I don't understand that at all. But the reports are saying if Green Bay loses, he could be out.
That would be an interesting monkey wrench in this whole thing. But, which I do understand that, but at the same, because go back to the Monday night game against Philadelphia. What was the final score? 10-7?
10-3 or 10-7, yeah.
10-3, 10-7, something like that. The offense could.
Jordan Love has not played well since week 2.
Yeah. And it's interesting you bring that up because, I was at the game in Cleveland in week 3. He really lost that game for the Packers down the stretch.
Yep. And he was my favorite to win MVP going into the season. And by the way, Green Bay didn't even make it with 10 wins. We both thought they were going to win 12, 13 games. They won 9.
Yeah. And they love being the number 7 seed. I'll tell you what.
Yeah. Let's go now to the Sunday games. Let's go to the AFC side.
This is the game I'm most excited about.
And by the way, this is my favorite pick of the week. I'm telling you right now, the Jags are going to beat the Bills.
I actually thought we were going to disagree with them about this. I'm genuinely surprised to hear you say that. But everybody's saying, "Oh, this is Buffalo's best opportunity to go win a Super Bowl." No Lamar, no Burrow, no Mahomes. Hello. Have you not seen how well Trevor Lawrence has been playing lately?
So here's my a little bit of a hot take I'm starting to cook up. Jacksonville representing the AFC in the Super Bowl. I think they're that good.
Could you imagine, theoretically, a Jacksonville-Chicago Super Bowl?
I think the NFL would have to be on suicide watch. But I mean, it's the NFL. Anything can happen. And Liam Cohen, not a lot of people knew who this guy was 2 years ago when he became the offensive coordinator of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He has single-handedly not only turned around Trevor Lawrence, but he makes that deal that the Jaguars made with the Browns, where the Browns fans were so excited because they got an extra first-round pick. Now it could be the 30s.
Yeah. And for that matter, Travis Hunter hasn't really been healthy all season.
No.
And you and I remember post-trade deadline, we were arguing about what was the biggest trade. I don't think either of us even mentioned Jacoby Myers to
And by the way, the minute he showed up, that offense, as you said earlier with your Browns fandom, I went like this. The Jaguars offense went like this.
Yes.
The minute he showed up.
Yes. Because I remember I said Rashid Shaheed to the Seahawks was the biggest trade. I don't remember what you said was the biggest trade.
I said Jaden Phillips for the Eagles on the defensive line.
Okay. But that's my point. Neither of us said Jacoby Myers. We might have mentioned it briefly, but I did not think he would have this big of an impact.
By the way, it's not only him. All of a sudden, Parker Washington has become a legit number 1 receiver.
Oh, yeah. I went back and watched that game between the Jaguars and Broncos. That first touchdown pass Trevor threw to Parker Washington was beautiful.
Trevor Lawrence is playing right now the best he's ever had in his career. And that dates all the way back, in my opinion, even in college, when he was this phenom at freshman at Clemson, when they defeated Alabama in that national championship. I think Trevor Lawrence right now is arguably playing like a top 3-4 quarterback in the entire NFL.
Yeah. I think if he had been playing like this, like throughout the season, he would be more so in the MVP conversation.
Oh, I completely agree. And I think we are looking at a Bills team who by Monday morning or Tuesday morning will be announcing that they will be looking for a new head coach. And I think I mentioned John Harbaugh earlier. I think John Harbaugh could be the Bills' new head coach next year. I would go in offensive mind with Josh Allen, but I think a lot like Baltimore, I think they just need a new voice. I don't trust the Bills. The Jaguars, I believe, are 5th in the NFL against the pass. Buffalo should be able to run the football with James Cook, but we all know they won't stick to that run. And for some reason, when push comes to shove in the playoffs, they always want to go Superman with Josh Allen, and I think that they're going to be in for a culture shock.
Yeah.
I think they're going to walk in thinking, oh, it's the Jags. They're not really that good, right? We can take care of them. And all of a sudden, when they blink and they're down, let's say 10-0 early, they're going to be in trouble.
Yeah. I also think that maybe there's a bit of a psychological advantage for Jacksonville. And here's what I mean. I know it's 7 years ago, and a lot of Buffalo's roster is different, but Sean McDermott was there. Josh Allen was there. Remember what happened in 2017?
That was the Blake Bortles versus Tyrod Taylor game, right?
I thought Josh Allen was still. Oh no, Josh Allen came in
the year after.
You're right. You're right. So maybe it's not as much of a psychological advantage as I thought. But so
they killed Buffalo, didn't they?
I thought it was a close, like 10-7 type game.
I did not think so. I thought Jacksonville ran them over. Maybe I'm misremembering it.
Hang on.
The AFC WildCard.
10-3.
Yeah, 10-3. You're right.
Okay. So, but I know it's completely two different teams, but Jacksonville still might have that bit of a mental advantage.
Especially for Buffalo, who's so used to that snow. Now they got to go down to that hot Jacksonville heat.
Yeah. Although after this season, I think they're going to be playing in Orlando maybe next year.
I didn't hear about that.
Because their stadium's undergoing massive renovations.
So, but you and I both agree. I think the Jags win this game.
I do too. I think this is going to be the best game of Wild Card Weekend, though. I really do.
Well, I'm biased about the next game. I think it's going to be the best game of Wild Card Weekend. At least I hope it is, and I'm on the right side of it because it is the last 3 representatives for the NFC in the Super Bowl. 57 Eagles, 58 Niners, 59 Eagles. We know the hatred these two teams have over the 2022 NFC Championship game. And now they match up in the wild card round. And there's a lot of people out there saying, oh, the Eagles should have tried to get the number 2 seed and played the Green Bay Packers. I was perfectly okay with resting our starters, going in as the 3 seed, because I actually think going up against San Francisco for the wild card round could be a better matchup for us because the Niners don't have a pass rush. Their defensive line is devastated by injury, and I think my defense is a Super Bowl caliber defense, and as long as Jalen Hurts does not turn the football over, I think we're going to win this game.
And think about this. San Francisco played on Saturday night, and they have to travel cross country to play in Philadelphia. I think that's also an advantage for the Eagles.
And by the way, the offense has not played well nearly all season. I mean, we did not complete a pass in the second half against the Buffalo Bills, and we won the game.
Yeah. Your offense looked anemic for the most part in that game against Buffalo, but if Josh Allen completes that 2-point conversion, we might be having a different discussion, but I digress.
I keep saying, man, I think these Eagles are like the 2023 and 2024 Chiefs, where you think of them as an offensive team, but really, because they have an offensive-minded coach, they have a great quarterback, they have great weapons, but really, they're led by their defense.
And all you really have to do to shut down San Francisco is stop Christian McCaffrey, but that's easier said than done.
Well, but who has the personnel to do that? Philadelphia does. We have the best combination, I believe, of defensive tackles in the league in Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. And since the addition of Jalen Phillips, the Eagles have had the best defense in the NFL, and it's not even close based off the stats. They're first in every category.
Now, to be fair, Brock Purdy, I should say, also went nuts in that Chicago game. I think he
did, but then how do you work against the Seahawks? Not good.
Yes. And Philadelphia's defense is more comparable to Seattle's rather than Chicago's. So we'll see if he's able to put on a Chicago-type performance. But, for Philadelphia, they got to establish Saquon early. And not just Saquon. I think Tank Bigsby, your backup running back, also has to be a factor in this game.
I agree. I also think A.J. Brown needs to touch the ball early. I think Devontae Smith needs to touch the ball early. Dallas Goedert needs to touch the ball early. It's going to be on Kevin Patullo to get these guys the ball, get them happy, get them involved, get this offense going, because I think once the Eagles get the lead on this Niners team and you force the Niners to throw more, that's when this game will turn it into the Eagles' favor.
And to harken back to what I said with the Rams-Panthers game, if you're able to establish the run early, that brings the safeties and some of the defensive backs down into the box, and that opens up the field for guys like Dallas Goedert, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, because they're so worried about Saquon going off. They're so worried about Tank Bigsby ripping off a big run. So in that sense, that's why I'm saying I think Philadelphia needs to establish the run early.
The goal is going to be to tire out the Niners defensive line because they don't have a lot of guys left that are playing on defense.
Yeah, Fred Warner is out. Nick Bosa is out. Bethune, the guy who was replacing Fred Warner, is out. So, it's definitely an advantage for Philadelphia. But again, I said it when we were talking about the Browns. Shanahan has done a great job coaching this team with all the injuries. They were on the doorstep of possibly getting the number 1 seed.
But it could be just like the Vikings a year ago, right? They were just on the doorstep of being the number 1 seed, and boom, 2 weeks later, they're out of the playoffs.
Yes. No, you're 100% right, and that's to bring that point up. I totally agree with you.
And Vic Fangio has seen a lot of these Kyle Shanahan offenses, and he's had success against them in his career. That's why I get it. It would have been desirable to be the 2 seed. You play a Packers team that you match up well against, and you get a guaranteed second home game. But the Eagles looked at it like they needed a bye. They needed to get their players rest. They didn't really care about the 2 or the 3 seed because they liked their matchup with San Francisco. And they said, we'll take our chances, either having to go to Chicago or then we get a home game against the Rams or the Panthers. And Packers-Bears is not a walk in the park for Chicago either.
No, you're right about that. But by the same token, how did you? Yes, like it was more likely than not Detroit was going to beat Chicago, but you also don't want Jalen Hurts to, lose his rhythm with Devontae, with AJ. So
last year they did the same thing in week 18. Remember, Jalen didn't even play week 17. Remember, he got hurt in the week 16 game against Washington. So actually, the last time he really played a full game was week 15 before the playoff game against Green Bay.
And I thought in the playoff game against Green Bay, it took him a little bit to get into the flow of the game. I don't think he was great right away.
No, but again, he didn't have to because they had such a great defense, and that's what they're betting on this year.
And by the way, I'm not trying to take anything away from that defense by saying what I'm saying, but I think that defense can only get you so far.
We'll see because there's only 4 games potentially left in the season. I think if you're not scoring consistently, you can only ask the defense to get so many stops. But if this team gets to 17 points, I think that should be enough.
Yeah, but you look at some of these offenses you might have to go against, like a Chicago, like maybe a Seattle, the Rams.
I'll take my chances with Sam Darnold. I will take my chance with Sam Darnold. The Rams are the team that scares me. I've said it all year. I've told you that all year. The one team I did not want to play is the Rams.
Fair enough. I think if Brock Purdy might be able to give you some trouble because of his ability to move and make plays, unscripted. He's not Mahomes. I'm not trying to say that, but his ability to make those unscripted plays, yes, your defense is great. I'm not trying to say they're not, but Purdy's off-schedule ability could give you issues.
I think we win the game. I think it's close. I think it's like 21-17. I'm not even sure we cover the 4.5, but I do think that we do win the game.
I do think Philly wins. I don't think it'll be. I think it'll be closer than the 4.5 spread.
Well, this is the one, Josh. This may shock you. This is the one I'm calling upset on. I like
Really?
I like the Chargers here. Everybody loves New England. The Chargers have the 31st run block and 32nd pass blocking offensive line in the NFL. I get it. But to me, I'm just going to take Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert against Drake May in his first playoff game.
Okay. No, that's fair. Um, and I do think Drake May is the MVP favorite now.
I agree. But here's my concern with the Patriots for this game. First of all, is Stephon Diggs even going to play with all of his legal issues? Because the one thing that New England banks on are big plays over the top. What do the Chargers not give up? Big plays over the top. What are the Chargers bad at? Offensive line protection. What is New England not great at on defense? Getting after the passer. They're 23rd in pressure rate. That's where I think Justin Herbert's going to be comfortable, and I think it's a bad matchup for New England.
See, I think this is a matchup where both teams wanted it. I think that's the reason why the Chargers rested Herbert and some of their other guys against the Broncos. And I think that's why New England played their guys, even though they knew it was more likely than not Denver was going to win. Because I think both teams see this as a favorable matchup for them.
I agree, and I know the Chargers are a California team. They're going west to East Coast, but they are built like an East Coast team. They're physical. They run the football, and I think it's going to come down to these two running backs, Amari and Hampton, Travion Henderson. I know New England has Ramondre Stevenson as well, but Henderson has gotten more run here as the season goes on. Who's going to make that big play in the run game, and or who's going to make that big play in the passing game? Because when Drake May was coming out of North Carolina, his comp, interestingly enough, was Justin Herbert.
Yeah, I think both these guys have the ability, kind of like what I was saying about Brock Purdy, they both have the ability to make those plays off schedule. You don't see Drake May do it as frequently as Justin Herbert, but we have seen it, so he is capable. I think he's not quite as willing to leave the pocket as Justin Herbert, which I do think that could be an advantage for Justin Herbert, his ability to either step up in the pocket and make a throw, or his ability to scramble, escape the pocket, and, pick up 10 or 15 yards on a run.
I also think there's a lot of pressure on Justin Herbert because of the fact that he is 0-2 in the playoffs, and he lost the Jaguars and Texans and played pretty piss poor in both those games.
Yeah. I agree with you. And the reason I think New England can win this game, I think they're more balanced than the Chargers. I think sometimes the Chargers rely too heavily on the run, and they don't even it out with the passing game. From what
not this year. This year they're top 10 in passing attempts a game. They're not running the football. It's actually the opposite.
Okay, so I had that backwards, but still, I think they're to a certain extent unbalanced, which could be to New England's advantage.
I agree. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. I think it's 2017, even 17-14. It may come down to who has the ball last.
Yeah, which in that regard, I would trust Drake May a little bit more, even though this is his first playoff start. The fact that he's at home, I really like Mike Vrabel as his head coach. Sure, Vrabel struggled in the playoffs with Tennessee, but remember, he did get them to the AFC Championship and nearly beat Kansas City. He got him to the number 1 seed with Ryan Tannehill as his starting quarterback.
And then lost to that Joe Burrow Bengals team off a bye.
Yeah. That Yes, you're 100% right. But still, you got to give credit to Mike Vrabel.
Oh, I like Vrabel. I also think he did get a little bit lucky because he went to Josh McDaniels, who will never be head coach again, and he can stay the Patriots OC for 10 years.
Yeah, he definitely did. Josh McDaniels should, you're 100% right. Josh McDaniels should never be a head coach. He completely failed in both Denver and Vegas. But, Drake May and McDaniels have been a very solid duo. I'd still like to see New England add another wide receiver. I know
Yes.
you got Stephon Diggs. I like Keyshawn Booty.
Well, again, I don't even know if Diggs is going to be on the team next year. I don't even know if he's going to play Sunday night. He's got legal trouble.
As far as I know, he's still going to be playing. I don't think. Same with Christian Barmore, who has his own legal issues for New England.
Something's going on there in New England.
Yeah, but I think with the Patriots, they've had these types of distractions before, and it's never really seemed to derail them. And I don't see it derailing them here. I think New England wins this game.
Well, the standard is the standard in Pittsburgh, as Mike Tomlin loves to say. But in my opinion, the standard ends here. I know Mike Tomlin's like 8-0 at home and Monday Night Football, some crazy stat like that. But I don't think the Steelers are going to be able to block that Texans defensive line. As much as I didn't want Aaron Rodgers going out on the bench and watching a game-winning field goal kick, I don't want to see Aaron Rodgers leave while getting destroyed by Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson either. But I think this could be a long night for Pittsburgh, who their only shot for me to win this game is to get multiple turnovers on CJ Stroud and hope to return to DK Metcalf that he's able to make one big play down the field.
Yeah, credit to the Steelers for winning that game without DK. Aaron Rodgers put on a vintage performance, and they got lucky that Baltimore missed that game-winning field goal because they blew two huge passes from Lamar to Zay Flowers. Like on the
blown coverages.
Yes, that's what I said.
Yeah.
That second one, you saw the replay and you're like, is anybody gonna?
Well, no, you just heard Chris Collinsworth during the play say he's got him again.
Yeah. And you saw on the replay too, there was nobody within maybe 5 or 10 yards of Zay Flowers.
No, and I gotta say this about the Steelers: as much as we made fun of Aaron Rodgers with the Jets, Aaron Rodgers was not the problem this year. I actually thought Aaron has played very well this year. Their problem is outside of DK Metcalf, they don't have a threat that can beat you vertically down the field.
By the way, like I know Aaron, I know it was only 1 year, but I'm surprised the Jets kept Aaron Glenn.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, they didn't get an interception the whole year. They're a complete disaster. Which, by the way, I used to hate on Aaron Rodgers when he was with the Jets. I used to make fun out of him because he was going for vice president. He was smoking ayahuasca. I gotta say, focus Aaron. He's actually been fun to watch this year, and I never thought I'd say that.
Yeah, but I want to talk more about the Houston Texans because I think after the early part of the season, we kind of wrote them off.
Oh, I called them dead. And 0-3. I said, that's it. They're dead. Colts are 3-0, and Texans are 0-3. I said, that's it. And all of a sudden, Daniel Jones gets hurt, and the AFC South completely flips around.
Yeah. D'Amico Ryans, we were both saying, I think we both said it at some point this season, he could be on the hot seat. I think we both said that, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, he's also got the best defense in the NFL. Right up there with Philly, I would say.
Yeah. I'll say this. Houston, they are a sleeper team to get to the Super Bowl.
Oh, I think there's a world where it's Texans, Jaguars, in the AFC Championship.
You know what? I could see that happening. But does Houston have the defense to cover DK?
I believe they do. It's called Derek Stingley. I think he could shut DK out of the game. I really do.
That's going to be the matchup I'm most closely watching. DK against Derek Stingley. I think that is going to be must-see TV.
I think Pittsburgh could get blown out in this game. I'm not saying it's going to be high scoring. I think it could be like 20-3, 20-6. But I think the Texans' defensive line is going to be too much for Pittsburgh.
So let me ask you this. We know that Mike Tomlin theoretically saved his job by winning that game against Baltimore. But if he loses in blowout fashion, as you're predicting, does that put him back on the hot seat?
Well, Josh, the standard is the standard, and if my aunt had men parts, she would be my uncle.
Oh wait. My favorite post game comments from Mike Tomlin after losing 13-6 against the Cleveland Browns. He goes, I didn't think we played poorly. We just didn't make the plays. I was laughing out loud when I heard that. I'm like, do you realize how stupid you sound?
Well, I don't think Mike really cares. But to be an honest question, I don't think the Steelers would fire Mike Tomlin. I think it's down to Tomlin's decision. I think Tomlin probably wants to come back. But if they lose this game, I think it all depends on Aaron Rodgers. I think if Aaron wants to come back, he'll be back. If he doesn't, I can see Tomlin transitioning and going to television. I don't think he'd get another job right away.
No, I don't think so. And for Tomlin, if he's going to be a team's head coach, I think Tomlin would run the show. It would not be the other way around.
Oh, I agree. And, maybe it is. Like, hey, John Harbaugh left Baltimore. Mike Tomlin leads Pittsburgh. It's time to change it up in that rivalry.
And by the way, like I said earlier, we were going to lead off with Steelers-Ravens.
Lived up to the hype. I didn't think the first game necessarily lived up to the hype. That second game, that was Ravens-Steelers.
Yes, that proved that as soon as that game ended, I was like, and that's why Ravens-Steelers is the best rivalry in the NFL. But I want to get back to the Texans because they didn't have Nico Collins on Sunday against the Colts, and yet C.J. Stroud was finding these two guys they drafted out of Iowa State. My one concern, though, are they going to be able to run the ball?
Yeah.
Are they going to be able to run the ball?
Yeah. No, you're right.
I don't know.
They got Marks, and I don't know if Chubb's healthy or not. He didn't play in week 18, but I think he's healthy. He was just a healthy scratch because they were trying to rush starters. We'll see.
That's my big question for both teams in this game. We saw Pittsburgh run it with Jalen Warren, and that was effective for them.
And Gainwell's been their best player on offense.
Oh, yeah. That catch he made against Detroit was insane, by the way.
Yes, it was. If the Steelers are going to win this game, though, it's got to be like 17-14.
Yeah. I was honestly surprised the game against the Ravens was as high scoring.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, we've spent the last hour and 13 minutes on the NFL. We're going to talk more football, but we're going to college football because we have had massive upsets in the college football playoffs. Some that if we were both on the air, I don't think either of us would have picked. And the fact that we have Miami versus
Ole Miss,
and we have Indiana versus Oregon in the college football playoff. I think it's a good thing for the sport. I am rooting for both Miami and Ole Miss and Indiana and Oregon. I think all four of them are good stories. I do want to see Ole Miss stick it to Wayne Kiffin. I also think it'd be one hell of a story if Oregon faced off against Miami because of the Mario Cristobal being at Oregon. Now he's at Miami. And for Indiana and Kurt Sandetti to go from having only 2 winning seasons in the history of their franchise to being this potential Big Ten powerhouse, knocking off Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game, then destroying Alabama in the quarterfinal matchup. All four of these teams have something you can get behind, and it's been 4 great games, which I did not think that we were going to get.
Well, I was definitely wrong about Texas Tech because if you remember, I had been saying, yeah, they're legitimate.
Yeah, I picked Oregon, and I said going into it, I thought, and I don't remember if we were on the air or not when we did our picks, I thought Oregon had the best side of the bracket. I thought they had the 2 easiest games to get to the semifinals.
Well, Texas Tech basically knew they were going to be playing Oregon. There was no way James Madison was winning that game. Tulane and James Madison did not belong in the college football playoff.
The whole CFP is a joke. And by the way, I do think it is something that the teams now up buys are 1-7 in the expanded playoff era. I do think that is something. I do think it's too much rest. I think 28 days off between the championship weekend and when you play New Year's Day is too much. I think it's unfair, and I do think that needs to change.
I also think it would be so much better if the teams who got the buys, were able to host these games on their own campus, in their stadiums. Like, what was the benefit for Indiana being the number 1 seed when you had to go out to Pasadena, California?
Well, the benefit is getting a bye, theoretically.
Right, but still, think about what that game would have looked like if it was in Bloomington.
No,
right?
I agree. But I think the thing is, Josh, is that the bowl era in college football outside of the CFP, even though ratings are still doing well, I think the bowl era outside of the college football playoff is it. Because I think that ESPN, who is mostly in control of this, wants another expanded playoff, at least 16 teams. And I think we're just going to get all these bowls condensed into the CFP, and it's going to turn into March Madness. That's how I really feel like this sport is going. And that was my concern when they expanded it from 4 to 12.
I was at the Boca Raton Bowl down in Florida. It was Toledo.
That's right.
It was Toledo against Louisville. I'd say it was about 40% full. Mostly Louisville fans, actually, which was surprising. But it was a decent game. I had to leave midway through the 4th quarter. But nonetheless.
But I mean, did you see, for example, the Podcards Bowl had better ratings this year than the NBA Conference Finals?
Yeah. And by the way, we were going to mention this on air. The Christmas games for the NFL, where the 4 teams were out of it, did better numbers than the NBA Christmas games.
And the NBA had its best viewership since 2017. So football is king in this sport. I think there are some things fundamentally wrong with the college football playoff. I think it's wrong that Brian Hartline had to leave Ohio State. I think it's wrong that Wayne Kiffin had to leave Ole Miss. I think that does affect, in the NFL, right? If you're a head coaching candidate, you can take a job, but you can't leave that team until your team's out of the playoffs.
Right. And think about what's going on with Ole Miss. They're trying to prepare for a semifinal game against Miami, and they're having to worry about who's staying and who's going to LSU.
And not only players, coaches as well.
That's the part I'm more so referring to, not so much the players. And think about this. Trinidad Chambliss, their starting quarterback, who put on an absolute show against Georgia. Oh, my God.
And I got to give him it because I didn't think Ole Miss had a shot. I thought this was going to be 35-7, goodbye in the first quarter.
Wait a minute. Do you remember the semifinal game between Georgia and Ohio State where Ohio State literally missed the field goal as it transitioned?
At midnight, yes.
And we all said, that was the actual national championship?
Yes.
I think that we could be saying the same thing about that Ole Miss Georgia game.
That's interesting. I just feel like Indiana's probably the best team.
I'm saying in terms of the game itself.
Oh, okay.
That's what I mean. Because think about it.
You could be right. You could be right.
Because think about it. In the actual national championship, it ended up being 65-7 or something.
Was that the year Georgia faced TCU?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, so and that's what I mean. It was like we looked back and we're like, no, that Ohio State Georgia game was the unofficial national championship. That's what I'm saying in this situation. That Georgia Ole Miss game was so good, and it came like down to the final seconds, even though that final 1 second took like 15 minutes or whatever. But nonetheless, I feel like we could be saying the same thing.
Yeah, I thought the script was written. I thought they were going to have Carson back face his former team. Turns out that's not the case. Carson Beck has impressed me. I did not think he'd be this good. I don't have a read on any of these teams really besides Indiana, which is interesting because now Oregon's looking for revenge because Indiana beat them in their house earlier this year.
Or Indiana really took it to Oregon.
Yes, they did.
Defensively. So I'll be curious to see
They were very physical. They were running the football. They beat up Dante Moore. Like, if you told me any four of these combinations would make the national championship, it wouldn't shock me.
Yeah. Do you realize that 3 of these 4 programs have never won a national championship? The only one who has is Miami. They've got, I think, 5 of them, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, that's what I'm saying, too. This year, because of the storylines within the game, like, we may have been shocked. We all wanted, I know you probably didn't because you're a Penn State fan, but most of the country wanted the Ohio State-Indiana rematch, and we wanted Ohio State-Georgia in the semifinal. We are going to get good games, I think, in the semifinal. I just don't think they're going to be marquee like they could have potentially been.
Yeah, I agree. And that's also part of the reason why I'm saying I think the Georgia Ole Miss game could be the unofficial national championship because, that was a rematch of a fantastic regular season game in Athens. You had all the storylines of, everything with Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin and their new head coach who was only in his second game and Trinidad Chambliss. So I'm slightly – I know Oregon, Indiana is a rematch, but I'm more interested in the Miami Ole Miss game.
Well, it's also funny. If this is next year, technically Miami wouldn't have made the college football playoff because we had to put Notre Dame in because they put in a clause.
Yeah. That's also part of the reason why I'm liking this playoff is because Miami is showing, we belong.
I mean, it came down to a week 1 game between Miami and Notre Dame. If Miami does not win that game, they're not playing in this game.
No, I do think Miami's defense might be able to get after Ole Miss. Ruben Bain has been fantastic in terms of the pass rush. Yes. Honestly, if he's there at number 6 for the Browns, I would not be shocked if they took him to barrel.
They should not. They have enough defensive linemen. They need to go get a freaking wide receiver to save their lives.
I agree. But if you put Ruben Bain alongside Mason Graham and Myles Garrett, that could cause problems.
Oh, it could cause problems, but then how's the offense going to score a single touchdown?
Fair point. But I'm very interested to see how Miami contains Trinidad Chambliss. And you got Lacey, who is planning on coming back next season.
Yeah. Miami's a real team.
Yeah, but Lacey is Ole Miss's running back. He played well in the game against Georgia. I think Ole Miss has the momentum. Yes, Miami took out the defending national champions, but still, you beat Georgia. I think that's advantage Ole Miss.
All right. Last topic of the night. We were talking about Cleveland a little bit. We got to talk about what the hell has happened to our Cleveland Cavaliers, who last year were the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. Thank God, and I'm going to say it now for the show's sake. Josh's Indiana Pacers in the second round of the playoffs. They lost in 5 games, and now they're out here basically playing Craig Porter Jr. and Naquin Tomlin the majority of minutes, and they can't beat any good team. and they're an average, not very good basketball team, and they deserve to be right where they're slotted right now, which is in the 8th seed of the Eastern Conference.
Yeah. We're a very average team. Yes, we've had injuries. I'm not using that as an excuse. Like, we played Boston at home earlier this season. We let Peyton Pritchard go for like 40, and we lost. We lost at home against Charlotte.
By the way, guess who's losing right now to the Indiana Pacers?
Oh, good Lord.
It's very early, but they are down 7 in the first quarter. With 2 minutes to go, by the way. It's 21-14 Indiana.
Oh, Lord. But, no, I'll give them credit. We hung in there against Detroit, but, we trailed by as many as 12 in that game.
Gave up 47 in the second quarter. They have the worst second quarter differential in the entire National Basketball Association.
In that game against Denver, we were favored by 12 and a half.
And they barely won because Jokic got hurt, and what's his name? The backup Valanciunas got hurt. Cam Johnson got hurt. Denver didn't have any players besides Jamal Murray. And the one guy was posting about it on LinkedIn. One of their players was talking about how his first NBA game. He posted it on LinkedIn.
Jamal Murray went off for 30 in the first half.
And they were so lucky to win that game. The Cavs are very Donovan Mitchell dependent, and I fear they're going to be first rounded by JB Bickerstaff's Pistons, and it's going to be embarrassing. And then they're going to have to make real big boy decisions. And by that, I mean, everyone wants to talk about, do you trade Darius Garland? Do you trade Jared Allen? The big boy decision you got to make at that point is, do we just trade Donovan Mitchell and start over?
No, that's a fair thing.
If they get first rounded this year, it should be like the Browns. Everybody should be fired. Atkinson fired, Kobe Altman fired, trade Donovan Mitchell, build around Evan Mobley, and restart the franchise.
Yeah, remember how we said we both predicted them to be in the Eastern Conference Finals? Boy, were we wrong.
I mean, they theoretically still could. They're only 2 or 3 games back at the 5 seed. So they can turn it around. And as much as we bang on this guy and he's still hurt, I really think we miss Max Strus a lot.
I like him, but he does not belong in the starting lineup. I don't know.
No, but they're missing that punch off the bench because Sam Merrill can only shoot. He can't play defense. He stands in the corner and shoot. And that's all the Cavs do. It drives me nuts. Give it to Donovan Mitchell. We'll dribble around the perimeter a little bit. Maybe pass it to somebody and shoot a free.
Yeah.
We have no offensive identity whatsoever, but stand in the corner and shoot a freaking free. We're not the Celtics from 2 years ago.
No.
And here's one last thing. What did I say when the Celtics won that championship? I said it was going to ruin the NBA because teams were going to try to copy that formula and just get 5 shooters out there because that's all Boston did. And that's exactly what the Cavs are doing, and it's backfiring.
Yeah. Like against Denver, they didn't have any big men, and yet we refused to use Jared Allen or Evan Mobley. Like most.
By the way, if they were in the West, they may be the 12th seed. They're lucky that they're in the East.
Yeah. By the way, we weren't going to talk about this, but I'll mention it. Trae Young's probably done in Atlanta.
Yeah. And by the way, I would not want to trade for him. It sounds like he's going to get traded to the bleeping Wizards of all teams. Have fun, Trae.
Yeah. I'd like to see him go to Minnesota and go be paired with Anthony Edwards.
I mean, yeah, I don't, I have not watched admittedly a ton of Cavs games this year because I'm mad at the Cavs. I'm angry. I'm ticked off. I think that they miss their window. This is not a well-coached team. This is not really a great roster. The pieces on paper are good. They're not fitting together. And I don't think it's scheme. And something's got to change. This team is more soft than Charmin toilet paper.
Yeah, we're not championship contenders at all. No.
Evan Mobley, now what is this, year 5? He is still not a grown man. He is
No.
still not dominating the game. It is a concern. And we kind of let it slide last year because the team was so good. I don't know what happened. It's like Tyrese Halliburton knocked their entire confidence out.
Yeah. By the way, I know he's only a rookie, but I'd like to see more minutes from Tyrese Proctor. I like what I've seen from him when he's been on the court.
I mean, why not? They're playing Craig Porter and Lonzo Ball, who still cannot play basketball. Lonzo Ball needs to find his way out of Cleveland. They made a mistake, in my opinion, not keeping Ty Jerome, it looks like, at this point, even though he got hurt for the Grizzlies. Sam Merrill is not whipped up. Naquin Tomlin's okay. You're not going to play him a lot in a playoff series because he's not ready to be a backup center. Like, this team has no bench production.
No. And yes, we've had to deal with injuries, but I'm not using that as an excuse.
And by the way, Dean Wade's falling off a cliff. And you mentioned the injuries. You know a team that's dealing with a major injury right now? The Boston Celtics. Their first or second best player, however you want to look at it, is probably out the whole season. They're third, the last time I checked, at least, in the East.
Yeah, there's a chance he could be back by April, by the way.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, the East, right now, it's Pistons, it's Knicks, it's Celtics.
Yeah, there's nobody else really. And we both said it's gonna be Cavs, Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals. No, it's not.
And on Christmas Day, which that was a pretty entertaining game, but in my opinion, you never felt like the Cavs were in control of the game.
Yeah, I mean, we're up 17, and you let Tyler Kolek shoot the lights out. Like, what are we doing?
It just seems like they're going through the motions.
The offense throughout most of these games looks just completely stagnant. Like,
there's no ball movement. It's staying in the corner while Donovan Mitchell make a decision.
Yeah. And I'm like, you can't do that. Like, teams are not going to just let Donovan Mitchell beat them.
They got 4 months to turn it around.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, that'll do it for this edition of Championship Rings. I apologize so much for my coughing throughout the episode. We're just going to hang in there. Next week, when we come back, we will go over what will be a preview of the College Football Playoff National Championship. We'll recap Wild Card Weekend. We'll talk divisional round. We'll talk other things going on in sports as well. It's good to be back here, our first show of 2026.
That's right. And Chris Jericho did not show up last night.
He did not. I'm surprised you waited an hour and 32 minutes and 48 seconds. But we will talk about wrestling in due time. We just had so much to get to tonight. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you guys next week on the next edition of Championship Rings.
Kevin Stefanski should not have been fired. Andrew Barry should have. And Jimmy has